I'm Rory Williamson from Williamson & Co Real Estate, and I absolutely love living in this unique part of the world. And when you mention Noosa or the Sunshine Coast, people instantly think of the gorgeous beaches, the laid-back lifestyle and the near-perfect weather. But what makes a place really special are the people that live there. One of the perks of my job is I get to meet people every day, and everyone has a story. Come and join me as we meet some of the most interesting characters of the coast. Dennis, you have managed Fleetwood Mac from 1981 to the late 90s, a band that has sold over 120 million records, one of the biggest bands of all time, and they're still going. I saw them in Brisbane recently, they were excellent. Yeah. But I have to know, Dennis, I mean, you started your musical journey as a session drummer. How does an Australian session drummer become a manager for one of the biggest bands in the world?
That is a good question and probably needs a lot longer than this interview could handle, but I'll summarise it. I was a kid that grew up in a housing commission area in Melbourne, Glenroy, Broadmeadows area, and it's funny what got me in. I'd started playing drums as a very young kid at about 6 or 7, and I'd beaten the kitchen chairs up so much with pieces of doweling that my mum decided to buy me a drum kit, a second-hand Broadway, which was about 20 years old when she bought it, and it was just about on its last legs, but to me it was something incredible, and she'd given it to me for my birthday. And incredibly enough, I found out in my mid-30s that my mum worked 2 jobs and took 7 years to pay off that drum kit.
Wow.
But that drum kit sort of led me on to I taught myself, and then eventually that took me to being a drummer in the Melbourne band scene. And played for the Total Fire Band and a bunch of other groups before heading off to England in my late teens to be a session drummer. But it was that's how that all started. And then an interesting turn to my career was when I got beaten up. I guess when you're the blonde-headed drummer in a band in Glenroy, you're not the most popular kid with all the thugs. And I got badly beaten up when I was 14 or 15 by 3 guys with a cricket bat. And it was in hospital for a few months, and when I came out of hospital I said to myself, this will never happen to me again, and I decided to take up martial arts and took up karate and ended up doing pretty good at that, and became Australia's first kickboxing full contact champion. And it was those 2 things, it was my music and my martial arts skills that led me to work for Fleetwood Mac on their Rumours tour.
Wow. Wow.
And that was the beginning of the journey.
And you were the Australian tour manager.
Yes.
And that went well, and they said, hey, do you want to come and work with us over in the States?
That's how it worked. I'd worked for them for their Rumours tour here, along with Richard and Richard Norton and Bob Jones, who were my martial arts instructors. And at the end of that tour, John Courage, the road manager for Fleetwood Mac, and Mick Fleetwood had said, hey, we'd like you to come and work for us in America if you'd like to, and I thought I'd never hear from him again. They got on the flight and left. I thought, oh, that's it, see you later. I'll never hear from him again. And then months later, a phone rang in the middle of the night, pouring rain, cold winter's night in Melbourne, and I hear a pounding on the door at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's my mother, and she goes, Dennis, there's a phone call. It's Mick Fleetwood on the phone. I went, Mum, it's just my friend's taking the piss. She said, no, I heard the beeps, beep, 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 beep. And that was the international dial tone. And I said, oh, geez, I jumped up, raced into the house, got on the phone, and it was Mick. And he basically had said, well, do you want the good news or the bad news, D? And Dennis, and I said, well, give me the good news. He says, well, the good news is, would you still like to come and work for us? And I said, absolutely. He said, oh, that's good. I said, what's the bad news? He said, your flight's leaving at 11 o'clock in the morning. So Mum and I sat up and wrote letters to my girlfriends and and my boss and other friends and family, and off I was the next morning at off to America for my first time ever, and I was meant to last 3 months, and it lasted nearly 18 years.
Wow, wow. And look, what was the hardest part for you managing Fleetwood Mac?
It's a good question. It's the balancing of 5 incredibly diverse and interesting personalities. And I don't know where I got that skill, but somehow I was good at it, and I managed not to treat anyone differently to anyone else. And they somehow, maybe it was my Aussie way or my Glenroy manner or something, but they really respected me, and they all took a liking to me, and I was able to work with all of them individually outside of even Fleetwood Mac, which was, I'm probably the only person that's done that.
And what's one of your most memorable moments of those 17 years, or something that stands out?
Well, there's a lot, but one was, we were in Houston, Texas, and we're in a big private jet, of course, for the tour, which Fleetwood Macs have been flying in private jets for a long time. And Lindsay calls me, who loves Mexican food, and we're playing in Dallas the next night, but we're in Houston. He goes, D, there's this amazing restaurant in Dallas called Herrera's. I want to go to dinner there. I said, yeah, but that's like 3 or 4 hour drive, 5 hour drive. He says, no, organise the jet. And I went, are you kidding? He says, no, let's do it. So myself and Richard Dashett, who was the producer and our sound engineer, he produced Rumours, one of the co-producers, and he was the sound engineer on it. He said, get Richard, we're going. And so he says, just organise it. I called the captain and I said, hey, Captain, we want to fire the jet up and fly to Dallas to go to this restaurant. So he says, well, I can't. He says, give me a couple of hours. He had to get clearance and God knows what. Cut a long story short, we got the jet, just the 4 of us. The rest of the band didn't want to know about it. They're all in bed and doing their own thing. We fly into Dallas, and then we get there, and there's this funky little street corner hole in the wall with a lineup of about 40 people trying to get in at lunchtime, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I go, oh, geez, now we're in trouble, because we had to get back because we had a show in Houston that night. So I'm going, oh. So I walk along the whole line and say, hey, guys, I'm the road manager for Fleetwood Mac. I got Lindsay Buckingham in the car. We need to get in. We got a show in Houston tonight and one in Dallas tonight. If you let us jump the line, you all get a ticket to the show. Every one of them just put up a huge roar and laughed, and they went, you got it. So I went along, got all their names, got Lindsay into the restaurant. We all ate our hearts out, left at 2:30, 3 o'clock, flew back and did the show at 8 o'clock that night.
That's amazing.
It must have cost him $20,000 or $30,000 back then. And he didn't give a rat's. So that was an interesting story.
I read in one of your articles that one of your big claims to fame is that you only missed one show in the 17 years when you managed them. They only missed one show. What happened that night?
Well, it had been a huge 3 days of partying, and then Mick had come down with a stomach virus. And Lindsay was sick. The party had gone on a bit too long this time, and it was the heyday of a lot of stuff going on. And yes, so we had the doctor come by, and here's 18,000 people screaming and yelling for Fleetwood Mac, and then 10 minutes before the show, I had to walk on stage and say, ladies and gentlemen, I apologise, but one of the band members has come sick, and we're going to have to postpone. And of course, there was boos and screams and cries, and that was the only show. But it was through illness, but probably brought on by a little bit too much enjoyment. Yes.
And look, you're best known for managing Fleetwood Mac, but there are other bands that you've been a part of. Mm-hmm. What are some? Well,
I was actually at home advancing a Fleetwood Mac tour, the one after Tusk the Mirage album. And I was down in Australia visiting parents and checking at the hotels, talking to the promoters, doing all that throughout Australia. And while I was down here in 1980 it was, I'd come across a band while I was trying on a pair of jeans in Myers, and I hear do 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 do, and I went, man, this is such a cool band. Who is this? So I go and ask the girl at the counter. She says, oh, I'm not sure who they are. Something Men or something like that. It's just a new single that's out. So I went down to Brash's. And I said, I want to know about that. It's sort of Men at Work. And he said, Men at Work, it's number 30 on the charts or something there. And then I looked up the local gig guide, and they were playing at the Brickmakers Arms that night in Richmond. And I went, shit. So I went and watched them. I was blown away with the set, and got their CD, flew back to LA. We're at a party at Christine's house, a big fancy dress party. And I'd been playing it to the different band members at times, and they said, these guys are great, But the hard one to get over was Lindsay. So I flew on this, I put about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I said to the DJ, put this record on. And up came Men at Work's Business as Usual, and everybody just flipped and loved it. And I said, that's the guys, Lindsay, I want to put on as the opening act of Fleetwood Mac on that tour, on the Tusk tour. And he says, Absolutely. He says, I love them. So I ended up bringing Men at Work to America and broke them there. And then after that tour, I ended up working and sort of basically being the American liaison for Men at Work throughout the US and Canada.
Wow.
And they went to and by the end of our tour, their album was #1 and ours was #3. And of course that was another feather in my cap, really, is being able to pick talent. And since then I went on to work. I worked with Air Supply in Australia. I worked with all the Aussies in America and the ones who have made it. And during that period of Men at Work as well, I got to help and work with In Excess as well.
There are so many talented artists out there, but it's a very hard road to the top. I mean, in your experience, are there any key traits or attributes that you've found like stars to have and share?
Yeah, yeah. It really is obvious to me now when I'm looking at talent, and there's a lot of good talent out there. You know, I guess with all of these TV shows now, I get a bit tired of hearing, "Oh, you are the next big thing. You're the next superstar." Really, none of them really know that a superstar has a certain personality and a certain quality of demeanour, and the way they either perform on stage, the way off stage. It is a chemistry that is undeniable once you've worked with them. Now I think I can identify that pretty quick when I'm looking at artists. And I'm not seeing a lot of it today. I see a lot of very good people, but I don't see where the next Queen is coming from. I don't see maybe the next Beatles or the Rolling Stones or even a Fleetwood Mac. I'm struggling to I'm seeing a lot of really good mediocrity, but I'm not seeing the next superstar just yet.
Yeah. I mean, it's harder for successful musicians to earn a living these days. I mean, everyone says the 70s, 80s, 90s was the golden era when people actually walked into a shop and physically bought a record. Yes. Has that affected the way people, are artists no longer being serious about a music career because of this? Is it because it's harder to monetize?
Look, I think the young kids, there is a resurgence in live music. My daughter's testimony, she's booking new and trying to help that new live young industry again. I think television has been a real, these programs that are on now, Australia's Got Talent and, The Voice and all this, it's always about one person, about the singer. But the root of the problem really goes back to the record labels not supporting the acts anymore. Because record sales did drop with live streaming and people file sharing, but if you look at the industry today, the labels used to I would negotiate record deals for Fleetwood Mac and Men at Work and whoever for 5 album deals. So they would nurture a band, say, oh, well, you did 100,000, hopefully the next one will sell 200,000. And they would work with you and they'd nurture you through. Now you get a single and they have the option. If a single doesn't work, you're out, you're gone. And that's why we don't see longevity in any of these acts anymore, because the labels don't spend the money in creating and nurturing the talent all the way through 2 or 3 albums. And I guess the fast food industry and the fast food lifestyle that we all live now and the fast food music, it's all about hear it fast, got that, downloaded it, move on to the next. So I think it's also a generational thing as well, and I hope it does come back. I really do. I hope it comes back to people supporting the industry and getting more into the artist, and like you're getting a handful of Ed Sheeran and Taylor Swift and a few others, but really it's not like it was in the golden era.
Are there any artists that you've managed personally that you felt deserved more success?
Well, I've been spoiled really because I've worked at the great ones that got a lot of success. I would have liked to have seen Men at Work last longer. That's been a big tragedy for me, and what the demise and what happened there, and the sad story about Greg Ham and the splitting up of that band. That broke my heart to see that happen, and I think that was the naiveness of the band at the time, and too much success too quick. And they didn't handle it like a Fleetwood Mac. Even through their controversy, they stuck together through thick and thin, where there was one big fight blew with Men at Work, and it dissolved the act overnight. And I'd fought my heart. I said, guys, think about the band is bigger than all of you. Stay on and make this work. Because I'd already put 5 members in separate Learjets and hotels when they hated each other, but they still got on that stage for 2 hours and they got an amazing show. And then when they walked off, they all went their own way, and the next day they'd do it all again. Men at Work couldn't do that.
Yeah. What would you say to young musicians now trying to go all the way?
believe in what you're doing, but just I think, really try to find out quickly. You know, like everyone, I think at the moment, they think they can write the songs themselves. And to me, you just find the very best material that you can, no matter where it comes from in the world, whether it's, I don't care where it's from, but find that song that's going to break you. Find the song, and then eventually you can slowly bring in your own material up to the quality of that. There are masters who write songs. You know, to think that you can just go and write an album yourself and have 10 hit singles on it is really naive. You need to have that very, very, very best song that you can find that is relevant on radio today, that's relevant to the current climate of the industry. Make that your record. Pay the guys who write it, their royalty goes to them, and you get to perform it live. And it goes back to John Farnham, and you know, and when he was doing those songs, you know, they were most of the hits. You know, One is the Loneliest Number. They were written by American artists. And then when you eventually make it, you get to, you know, maybe add your own songs, but quality material's hard to find.
Yeah, yeah. Dennis, you're on a deserted island. You can only take 3 albums with you. What would they be?
Oh, jeez.
That's a hard
Don't
one.
say rumours. But I'd have to probably say that. What would it be? Oh, I love Eddie Money. I've got to say, I got 2 tickets to Paradise. He just passed away this week. I'd love to take, I loved Eddie. He was a great guy, and I loved that album. I'd have to probably take, I will take Rumours with me just because it helped me build this house or renovate this house. And what else would I'd probably have to say Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody. I'd be happy with those 3 albums.
It's good selection. When you first came to Noosa, was that a very strong memory? Were you a young man?
I was. I used to come up with the Wrinkles, with the old folks. My mum and dad had a caravan. That was quite a rich asset to have in Glenroy. I think my dad either stole it or borrowed it. He would hate me. He's passed away, sadly, God bless him. But on school holidays in January, he decided we're getting in the van and we'd go up the coast and spend like 3 days driving. You know, the aircon was winding the window down. Yeah. You know, and then you got here and the humidity was as thick as soup. But we'd get to Noosa eventually, and we parked at where the park is there now, at the end of Hastings Street, and that was a caravan park, and we'd stay there for a couple of weeks and then do it all, head back. And we did that about every 3 years, and I always loved Noosa. And when I'd come back on Fleetwood Mac or Men at Work tours, I'd always find myself coming back to Noosa and just laying on the beach and going to the cafes and restaurants, and I've watched it grow nicely. And when we decided to come home in 2004, 2005, I always said to my family, we're going to go back and we want to live in Noosa. And after California for 23 years, I needed to live in the beautiful climate. Yeah.
There's a plethora of great places to eat in Noosa. Do you have a favourite spot or one of them that you like?
Bistro C.
Great.
Calamari and a cold beer there on a hot day, beautiful day overlooking the bay is probably one of the nicest experiences you could ever have.
If you could live anywhere on the Sunshine Coast, is there a pocket that stands out for you or you particularly love, or a street?
Well, my street.
Yeah.
I love Old Taunton. I love the old Queenslanders. I lived in a modern house up in Timbiwa for 10 years, and then we've purchased the old. When the girls had all gone off to uni and we had the empty nesters, so to speak. We decided to downsize, and I stopped mowing 5 acres of land, and so I could chill out and write my new book that I'm working on at the moment. I think Noosa is the best place on earth. I just love it here. Yeah. Why would you live anywhere else when you can live here?